I find most people have some level of ability to be intuitive. They just don't pay attention to it. It's again, know yourself. Where is your awareness at about what's going on with you? A basic rule would be, if you want to know how you're into it, listen to your language or have a friend tell you, what do you say most? Do you say, I hear you? Do you say, I feel you? Those are key diagnostic tools that tell you what your intuition is. If you're feeling, then that's how you get your information.
Hi, welcome to the show. And I am so grateful and excited to have Marie Swanson back again. So, hi, Marie.
Hi, Lisa. How are you doing today?
I am great. Thank you so much for coming back and keeping us company.
Oh, you're more than welcome. I love our conversations.
Well, I do too, and that's why I'm so excited to have you back. Rosemary is full of knowledge and wisdom about the Akashic Records, and we want her to assist us in our growth and our pattern with the Akashic Records, but also just as becoming the human beings that we're meant to be. And this particular conversation that we're going to have today is going to be more focused on people with their struggles in connecting with the Akashic Records, or even just their intuition. And the reason why we chose this subject specifically is because I think what the question that's typically asked when I'm having sessions with people is they always want to know what their blockage is, or how can they become more connected. And I know that Rosemary has a lot of experience in giving guidance in this. And so I thought she would be the perfect person to be able to answer these questions. So Rosemary, before we really get into this and do the deep dive into that specific subject, I was wondering if you could give us just another brief little description of, how you got involved with the records, and maybe how you discovered your intuitive abilities and the steps that you've taken to get here.
Absolutely. I actually had a connection with the angels at a pre-elementary school age. They would guide me. The first time I was introduced to an angel, I was awoken in the middle of the night, and the message was, we just want you to know we're here for you because we know you'll need us. I was raised in an extremely abusive family. So it was warmth and comfort and love that I experienced for the angels. And then they would come to me periodically and tell me something that was going to happen in the future. And I made the mistake of telling my mother that, and she immediately shut it down. So I went into fear and shut it off. So it actually wasn't until I hit my mid-30s, when I started having flashbacks of my childhood, that I became a seeker and looking to find how to discover who I really am. It took me probably, Lisa, over 20 years to realize that what I was missing was me.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything outside of me. It was me. I was the part that was missing. So that was it. And again, it took many, many years to get there. I took a lot of classes. It took a lot of learning. It took a lot of clearing, a lot of healing to get me where I am today. But I'm a number one example. If I can do it, anybody can do it.
Well, I like the part that, and I really think that this needs to be emphasized. You had mentioned, number one, the missing component was me,
Yes.
and then being able to do the work to clear The debris, I'm calling it the debris. That's what's coming to me. The debris in order. I have my records open, so you understand. So I'm seeing images at this point. So, it's really, that's so significant of understanding how the debris from our lives, the experiences, the words that were told to us, they cause these obstacles that are going down the road, as we
Yes.
go down the road. And if we can begin to understand that if you can clear off all the debris on the road, then it's a straight, easy shot to the destination.
Yes.
And how significant is that to understand? And so I do want to kind of touch on clearing the debris.
Okay.
And because it is such a important component of being able to clear that channel, that connection, with our divine, with our angels, with our guides. And so I wasn't going to go here just yet, but I think we just opened the door.
I think so. Well, there's the old famous saying, "Know thyself,"
Yeah.
and that is very true. So there's a lot of different ways you can attempt to begin to do that. Because you're right, it's debris. I call it overlays. It's like blankets of debris over us that keeps us from being able to see the light of who we really truly are. And
Mm-hmm.
so there are many, many different ways to clear that. But the key is you have to have the willingness, you have to have the courage, because it does take courage to face some of the stuff that has taken place. I know it did for me. I
Yeah.
was extremely abused as a child. And in the beginning, I was very, very blessed in just having the right people come to me for what I was ready. And that's another key aspect. You have to go with what you're ready for in the moment.
Yeah.
Some people are ready to jump off the cliff and fly. Some people are not. And there's no judgment
Mm-mm.
either way of what you're ready for or what you're not ready for.
Yeah.
The thing is just to do it in
Right.
whatever pace, whatever level you're ready for.
Yeah. So, and again, I think that this is such an important topic. So let's go back. Let's just kind of visit for a second on what debris could be, such as what you just mentioned, abuse patterns,
Yes.
that we've had to endure, and how these belief systems, or the traumas, can affect and create. I always see it as, it's kind of like it causes us to contract,
Yes.
and it makes us tighter and denser.
Yes.
The more things. So just so that everybody can understand a bigger picture of what the debris could be. Can you mention some other things?
Yes. Abuse comes in many, many different ways. It could be something said to a child verbally, that the
Mm-hmm.
child interprets it through the vibrational tone of what was said, and creates a belief around it. So the adult may not have really meant anything by what they said. They may have just been maybe thinking they were funny, but the child takes it on and creates a belief around it. The belief could be, I'm stupid.
Mm-hmm.
The belief could be, I'm not enough. I'll never be enough. It always comes from some sort of sense of lack within self that creates that self doubt. Um, and you may not even know what that doubt is, because it's hidden, because in the moment, the pain was so deep. We learn as children to disassociate when something happens bad. So we put it in a little box and put it away, we think, right? But it always comes up. When something takes place, it always comes up. For years, if somebody mentioned I was left handed, I would have this tremendous knee jerk reaction of anger. Did not understand why. I mean, the people didn't. really mean anything harmful when they would comment about me being left-handed. But it wasn't until I traced it back to the fact that as a child, I was taught by my father I was left-handed, which made me backwards and stupid.
Mm.
So once I was able to go in and look at that, identify it, and heal the pain that child had around it, now somebody mentions me being left-handed, it doesn't faze me.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be something very minute, very simple, one statement that an adult says to a child that the child just spins off.
Yeah.
You know, we only can use 10% of our brains, and we have filters within us to protect us. Some filters delete a lot. Some filters make whatever you see on the outside world match the beliefs on the inside world. And then it just compounds that belief, and it makes that belief even more real. So the key is to be able to go in and delve into what those beliefs are, what created them, and clear them.
Yeah.
And it is a very profound process that can be done now after since 1987 of my studying nonstop. I know how to be able to go in on a quantum level and be able to clear these things and clear them very quickly and very easily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's amazing how the little things. So the records. Whenever I'll be doing a session with somebody and something comes up, and the records will use the term of abuse. And so people immediately talk about triggering. It's like,
Yes.
I was not ever abused. And, and then it's like, calm down. And what's so interesting is that we have a belief system that abuse and trauma is only something that may be physical or emotional to a certain level.
Yes.
And we don't ever think about something so simple as you could be in the second grade and the teacher gives you a test back and you fail it. And she says something like, you need to study more or you need to be better. And all of a sudden you shrink.
Yes.
And so the description that they've always used for me, my guides or my masters have used for me is that it's anything that makes you feel small.
Yes.
Abuse can be the most simple, simplistic word, but if it makes you feel small and then you're holding on to it, then it's a form of abuse. And
it's very interesting because that one simple small thing creates this huge network. It's like a spider web of other beliefs that compound it. So it can build into something very complex that needs to be literally taken apart, dissected.
Yeah.
So, but it starts with something very, very, what an adult would think would be trite. But as a child, it's not, it's big.
Yeah. And we make comments all day long when our bosses tell us, certain things that you didn't do this efficiently and we're going to fire you. And again, this feeds into our belief system of feeling, worthless or small or, not significant and all that stuff. So I kind of got a little bit off track, but I think that this specific situation is so extremely important that when people really are interested in becoming more intuitive and connecting, I think we have to figure out what those blockages are because it's so mind oriented. And if the mind's thoughts can sneak into what the information is that we're receiving, then it can distort it. It can block it. It can. What I'm hearing is it can prevent it from being seen clearly.
Yes.
And so in all this process of us becoming more intuitive, a lot of people never even think twice about clearing our baggage and really how it's the process of becoming one.
Yes.
and whole within ourselves again, finding the truth of who we are and not the illusion that was created due to these belief systems that we've created from the beginning of our lives that other people have said conditioned us to believe, and it can be something as simple as society. It can be the commercials that we see on TV. You're supposed to look a certain way. Our mother's saying, don't sit like that, you need to act like this,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
it's so many different things that we're so conditioned to it, we don't even recognize that it's. And I always see it as it's putting our mind in a box, and the
Mm-hmm.
box is a thick field
Yes.
that is confining it and not allowing that divine energy to come to us because it's serving again as an obstacle.
Yes.
Which is now leading us back to what we started with.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I was talking to a group of people who were both Akashic Record readers and intuitive psychic people. And one of the questions I got from one of the young men was, what's blocking me? What's keeping me from going deeper into the records? I can only seem to get to a certain level and I can't get beyond it.
Yeah.
And when I scanned him energetically, it was a block in his heart. And I contacted him later and I went in and there was an energy of crucifixion that he was holding within his heart, that he would be crucified or hurt if he was able to do this.
Mm.
Through going in through the quantum realms that I do work in, I was able to immediately clear it for him. And he sent me this beautiful, beautiful picture that he had an AI draw for him. It was exquisite about me clearing his heart and how much more open he felt. He literally could feel the lightness within his chest and within his heart and the brightness beginning to come out, that he could consciously begin to see it. And he could never consciously see it before.
Yeah. And I think that, you and I, we've been doing this work for so long. And, the Akashic masters are, are so misunderstood in the sense of what they provide us. And, it's all about letting go of these old belief systems. And every single time I do a class or give a message, it's always talking about stripping these belief systems. And it's so hard to understand that there's a significance in this.
Mm-hmm.
And what my masters always tell me is that the more simplistic the mind, the more we are one. And it's the simple mind, the simple mind. And and being able to let go, and that's what allows us to become in that oneness that we truly are. And that is what I feel like we are, who we're meant to be. And you can't be anything but intuitive. It's like, okay, everybody, bring it on, guys. And it's just, it's all one because everything is, I'm hearing the word interactive.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the truest, purest essence of the soul's existence and everything that is above and beyond that, that coincides with us to create that oneness. And again, it's just those silly beliefs that cause the disconnect. So anyway,
And I find most people have some level of ability to be intuitive.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't pay attention to it.
Yeah.
It's again, know yourself. Where is your awareness at about what's going on with you?
Yeah.
So a basic rule would be, if you want to know how you're into it, listen to your language or have a friend tell you, what do you say most? Do you say, I hear you? Do you say, I feel you? Those are key diagnostic tools that tell you what your intuition is. If you're feeling, then that's how you get your information. Intuitively, you feel it.
Mm-hmm.
If you hear it, then you're clairaudient. That's how you're receiving your information. If you just know something, that's claircognizance. So if you start becoming aware of your language and how you receive information in general, that's number one step. After that, you have to make the commitment. You have to determine whether you really want to develop the skill or not. And it takes commitment. It takes practice. So I was thinking about it this morning. I'll use Reiki as an example. That was one of the very first things I learned. And I was a medical lab technician for years. So I would walk down a long hospital hallway at night with my eyes closed and my arms out to see when I could feel where the doors and the walls were. And when I felt something different, I would open my eyes and look to see what it was so I could identify it. And then I got good enough where I knew where every door was with my eyes closed. And then I went a step further. Is there anybody behind that closed door? And then I started playing with it. Well, is there not? Well, maybe. Well, let's check. Yeah. So I started verifying. So if you want to look at intuition, make a game of it, but be consistent. Play with it. Keep going with it. Mm-hmm. That's one of the biggest downfalls with any of this work. And I find this with my students with the records. They just are not willing to be disciplined, to take the time to go into the records every day. Yeah. Like developing a friendship. Yep. When you meet somebody on the street, you only say hello. But as you get to know them, then it becomes closer. Then you know how to ask the deeper questions, the questions with more meaning behind it. Yeah. Questions that will allow you to become more at one with the masters. And so it takes time, it takes energy, it takes willingness and courage.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing. So you said something in that description, something about teaching the Akashic Records. Oh yeah, and by the way, Rosemary, do you teach people to open their Akashic Records?
Yes, I do. I absolutely love teaching the records. It brings so much joy to me to be able to watch a student develop and to watch them see their own lights for the first time as they go into their own divinity. Because when you go into the Akashic Records, that's what you're connecting with. Yeah. Connecting with your own divinity. I mean, can you get any better than that, guy?
Well, I'm a little bit partial, so I'm going to say no. But again, but you and I understand we've been doing this work so long that we have developed those relationships, and it's an honor and it's a privilege, and it is a feeling that when you can truly let yourself go and stand and sit in this energy that the Akashic field is, it is of the divine love, and you truly can feel it. And obviously, I'm extremely passionate about the ability to be able to do this because it's that special. And we use the term it's sacred, but it really is. Yes. It's a sacred practice. It's a sacred experience, and it's sacred information that's provided. And again, we have to clear our trash to get there.
Yes, indeed.
So how long have you been teaching the Akashic Records, or teaching people how to open their own records?
It's been over 20 years.
Yeah, so you have a little bit of experience. Yeah. So and again, you and I know how you open the records because we do it the same way, but I do want to just kind of describe a little bit, just refresh that little short way of our technique to connect to the Akashic field.
So the technique itself is called the sacred prayer method. And there was, back in the early 70s, a sacred prayer, a very ancient prayer, gifted to Johnny in Mexico when he was on a vision, request. And it was written on gold and placed into the crown of his head, is the story that we were told. He then in turn began teaching others this prayer. And his reason for it was to be of service, because the records had told him the difficulties that we would be facing. And he knew that people having this ability would help them move through the traumas and the everyday drama that we were going to be faced with. And heaven only knows there's been a lot, right? So Mary Parker, who is the founder of Akashic Record Consultants International, LLC, was taught by Johnny and was told in the records to begin teaching people and to create a school. And it is through that I learned. And my teacher, my two teachers, or two sisters that are still with the school, we're all co-managers of the school, and we do certify people to become certified consultants and certified teachers for the organization as well.
Yeah.
The intention of the school is to maintain the purity of what we were originally taught, because there are those that do not maintain the purity.
Mm-hmm. And there's distortions,
Yes.
and the prayers kind of shift and change. But I think that for people like you and me, we have such a deep, heartfelt connection to the records that we do want to be honest and true with who they are. And, there's a lot of misrepresentation of the gimmicks,
Yes.
pay me to take this class and whatever. So I think it's important for people to truly understand that, there's teachers here that have been doing this work for 20 and 30 and 40 years, and you have access to them, and here's one of them. So that's I'm thrilled. One of the reasons why I'm so excited to be having this conversation with you, so that we can share your knowledge and wisdom, experience, and the sacredness of this particular practice. So on to the next. We keep kind of going down these little paths, but I do think I think it's important, and that's why I want to continue on with those conversations. But going back to when you are teaching somebody how to open their own records, what do you find that most people struggle with in being able to open to that connection?
Well, one of the biggest things that come up in the very beginning is, how do I know whether I'm in the records or not? Which is why in the level 1 class, which is where you learn to open your own records first, we do the same process out of the records and in the records. And we do it repeatedly. So you can understand, this is coming from my mind, this is coming from my tuition, this is coming from the records. There is a difference. There's a profound difference between that, just as there is difference between when I speak with an angel or when I speak with a ascended master.
Mm-hmm.
Frequency difference.
Yeah.
The whole purpose of that level 1 class is so a student can begin to discern what is not the records and what is the records.
Yeah, and I think that energy vibe is a big deal, and people don't have a clue.
No.
And it's always funny because you can obviously see from my background, I'm very earth oriented.
Yes.
I've got a lot of Native American past life experiences, and obviously it's in me. But
Yes.
I also have found, so like if I do a drumming with somebody, I immediately go back. The energy that's brought up is a denser earth energy that is from, and I'm just going to use the term shamanic nature, but only because that's what's coming to me. I don't even know if that's a good word to use, but it's definitely different than this energy that comes from the Akashic field that's very light. It's very uplifting. And then when I compare it, like if I'm participating in a drumming, then I have a tendency to journey into the earth culture. It's more grounded, it's more animal oriented, it's more nature oriented, but it's definitely a heavier, denser energy. And then when I open my records, all of a sudden my body feels extremely light. And it's just, that's all I can say is it's completely different. But when we also look at the different realms, and what I'm hearing the word to describe with is different realms of consciousness, and I'm not sure that that's a word that the public would understand. But, like if you look at angel energy, if you look at our loved ones' energy, such as people that have passed on energy, there's these different forms of energy that are around us. And the Akashic energy is very different.
Yes. It is pure unconditional love.
It is.
It is very, very high frequency, very beautiful. And the minute you open the records, you feel a sheath of that energy just come down around you and surround you and fill you. And it is very uplifting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's so interesting because I remember when I learned how to open the records, and my teacher told me, "You're going to have to sleep," because our normal energy is so dense that this shifts us to a higher frequency, and our physical bodies have to adjust to this energy, and it's a big change. And what I'm hearing now also is to explain, that this is what's happening right now in the universe, this 5D energy that is in, and that's why we're sleeping and reacting. It's kind of like the same thing, is that our bodies are having to shift to this higher level of energy, and the records can be challenging that way too, because it's a big, you really have to adjust to what they provide you physically, mentally, and emotionally.
Well, I tell first level students particularly, don't stay in the records any more than 5 or 10 minutes at a time.
Mm-hmm.
You can open them a number of times, but our physical body vibrates at a very slow, heavy frequency. And the records, being unconditional love, vibrate very high, very light, very fast. And they can lower and meet you where you're at, but even that tires the physical body out. So we don't want people to get overtired. So if you get tired, just close the records and come back to them later. You will build a tolerance up, because the beauty of this work is the more you're in the records, the longer you can hold the higher vibrational frequencies until you can hold them hours at a time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, again, let's go to the next question. So when you are teaching and individuals, we typically start with individuals that are just kind of getting on their road. And they may not be as advanced as some people that have been doing it for longer periods of time. So when you teach them the techniques to open the records, what is the typical problem, or with the typical concern or inability, I guess is to say, to what trouble do? Let me ask the question for the fifth time. Okay, I'm going to get the word straight in just a second. When people have trouble connecting, what is the most common problem?
Self-doubt. And that comes in many, many different forms. It's a sense of lack within oneself. So again, it goes back to the debris that we hold on to. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not spiritual enough. I'm not advanced enough. It's and interestingly enough, the fear around what they're going to find when they do begin to see the truth of who they are.
Yeah.
Because some people fear they're not going to like what they find.
And some people don't like what they find.
And, it depends on what side of the fence they're standing on.
That's the point.
Yes.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
You do, when you get exposed to this level of energy, it is then a necessity to begin to clear whatever there is that needs to be cleared in order for you to advance. Now, you don't have to clear it, however, but in order for you to advance,
Yeah.
it will need to be cleared.
Right.
I had a client who came to me for a clearing session, and she was totally blown away. And when I talked to her afterwards, she wanted, the only way she would agree to have another session is if she could tell me exactly what she was willing to let go of or not. And honey, I understand that there's some fears of who will I be if I let this go,
Yeah.
because we identify ourselves with
Mhm.
all those negative beliefs.
Yeah.
That's who we think we are. We can't, from that position, we can't see that we're so much more than that.
Yeah. And you're touching on another huge subject, that we could spend an hour talking on just that. But, that is, we deal with it every single day. And, we're right in the midst of it, whether you're in the Akashic Records or not. The energy that is on the earth at this point is rocking our boats. And
Yes.
that's where we are is it's pushing against those old beliefs, and it's causing us to really look at,
Yes.
can I believe that if I let go of the idea of, let's say something silly is, let's just say that anybody that weighs 50 pounds more than what they're supposed to is a horrible human being because this
Mm-hmm.
was ingrained in me.
Yes.
They're lazy, they don't work good, or whatever it may be. This is a belief system that was ingrained with me as a child. So every time I see somebody that's overweight, what I project on them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, this energy is coming in and bumping up against that belief system. And the fear of what will happen if I let go of this idea that I have about another person.
Yeah.
Who will I become if I let that go?
Yeah.
And then what will fill that space if I do let it go? It's scary for people not recognizing or not having something solid to hold on to of what's going to happen in my future if I let this part of me that's been a part of me for my entire life or majority of my life. These belief systems that our parents ingrained in us, and
Yes.
and all those things.
One of my favorite processes to do with a student is to have them go into their records and to ask the masters to show them who they are through the master's eyes.
That's genius.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that.
And people are absolutely blown away
Yeah.
by the beauty and the depth and the exquisiteness of the images or the languaging that they receive from the masters on who they really are.
And that's the key. That's who you really are.
Yeah.
And how these belief systems created the image of who we think we are.
Yeah. Yep. And it's judgments are so connected with beliefs because we were taught to judge at a very, very early age. And if you want to know whether you're judgmental or not, start carrying a small pad and a pad of paper and a pen with you. And every time you find yourself judging something, make a little note on it.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be very surprised and judgments don't mean you have to say something's bad.
Mm-mm.
I mean, you can judge something as being better than you.
Yep.
And that's worse than saying it's less than you in all reality.
Yep.
So to start becoming aware of how you're judging things can give you a very good key to what the belief behind it is.
Very important information. So the next question that I have which is actually kind of funny, is are there blockages that can occur during
Well,
during this
yes,
time to become intuitive?
yes.
So I think we have covered that thoroughly.
Well,
So,
there's been one area that we have not covered. So
okay.
if I could just take a brief moment for that. We're not looking at the ancestral lineage or the epigenetic lineage.
Yeah.
So there are things that we inherit either on a human family level or even a soul family level
Hmm.
that can create blocks within our humanness to keep us from our own divinity, to keep us from being able to see who we really are, whether we're looking at ourselves through the Akashic Records or through our intuition or however. So there are epigenetics that can create blocks within you too, but that can be cleared out as easily as the other one.
Can you give an example of that?
Yeah. If you had an ancestor that had an experience that said spiritual stuff created harm, or they were killed because they were psychic and could bring information. I mean, the witch hunts is a good example, right?
Hmm.
So if you're in that lineage, it can be brought down to you through your ancestral lineage that there is a belief that if you start opening yourself up to psychic abilities of any kind, you're going to be burned at the stake.
Yeah.
Now, it's irrational. Your conscious mind probably does not ascertain that's what's going on, but that's the bottom line block within you that's keeping you from moving forward spiritually.
Yeah. So when you're talking about your ancestors and your lineage, give us an example of what you're referring to.
Um, if you had in your lineage somebody who practiced black magic and they were bound by a vow never to practice magic because of what they did, that vow is going to come forward to you in this lifetime.
Yeah, and I think I asked the question incorrectly, so sorry about that.
Okay.
But when we're talking about, like, when you're talking about your ancestral lineage, are you
Mhm.
talking about your physical, your present history of your grandparents, your great grandparents, or are you talking about past life lineage? So, what are you
All,
referring to?
all of the above.
Okay,
It can
that's
be the family in this lifetime. It could be past lives. It can even be your soul lineage.
okay. That's what I wanted to make sure.
Yeah, a lot of people aren't really aware of that, but there
Yeah.
can be limits and blocks passed down through the soul lineage
Hmm.
to be cleared, where on a soul level, there has been abuse. There has been an imbalance created either through love, power, or wisdom.
Yeah, and and I've recognized too, doing my own work, that past lives can be, brought back into this one, and I think that that's kind of understood. But it's interesting. I just had an experience, and I just want to share this because I think it's something that people can understand, and it doesn't apply to everybody. But I also, besides my native background, past life background, I have a samurai, so
Ah,
apparently, I was a samurai in one particular lifetime that has carried on to where it's been present in this lifetime for me as well. But just a couple of weeks ago, I did some work to release some old beliefs and some stuff, doing my work. And after I did the work, it took it about 24, 48 hours. I had the experience of the samurai coming to me, and it was, I mean, this was just me sitting on the couch. It was like, I don't know what's going on, but this energy came in and it felt like it was just ripping me open. And I saw the samurai, and it was a very dark, negative energy. And I saw a hand come in and reach into my heart, and it pulled out this dark energy, and it looked like a chunk of coal. Like it was like something that was like a hard black rock.
yeah.
But what I and they it was removed. But what I was witnessing was also all of the trauma that that samurai went through, that was embedded in me. That was the trauma of killing people, the trauma of the jobs and the things that he had to do and that was required, and that he was bound by whoever his Lord was, and he had to answer to him. So all of this stuff that was wrapped up in this samurai, and he was very sad. There was a lot of sadness that was in this poor little samurai that I've been carrying around, and I couldn't figure out where it was. I knew that there was something that was in me, but at this point, I'm 60. I've been doing this work for 30 years, and it was just now time to let it go. And so that's what the universe came in and helped me to release that. But it was amazing when I could see it so clearly, how the emotions of the samurai, this past life that I had, was still embedded within me, and how it was affecting me in this lifetime.
Yeah. So what I want to point out to people who are listening to this, if you really listen to what Lisa's saying, she's not going into judgment about the samurai or what took place. Mm-hmm. She's gone into love and compassion.
Yeah.
There is no right or wrong. There is no judgment. In past lives, we've all done good. We've all done bad. So what?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. Well, it's the journey.
Part of the journey.
Yeah.
How it affects you and what you're going to do about it in this moment. That's all that matters. So thank you, Lisa, for that example.
Yeah, thank you for recognizing that. And again, I've worked hard to get to this point, as we all have, or you and I have anyway. So the other question that I have is, how do people? The other, what a common question is I can't tell if it's my mind or not. Mm-hmm. And we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. But it's because it's on my list of questions I'm trying to follow. So, when you were talking about, like how people can recognize what the difference is between the discernment of their mind and their messages, do you have something specific that you can give them that'd be pretty clear?
Yeah, usually if it comes from the mind, it is typically dense, heavy, negative. If it's coming from the records, I don't care what they're telling you. It's done in a very positive, loving manner.
Yep.
So that is one of the basics things. How does it feel to you? And if you question, is this coming from my mind or is this coming from the records? Ask the records. Is this my mind or is this you guys talking to me? Give me a sign of clarity of how to tell the difference. Yeah. And they will help you do that. Yeah. That's the beauty of the work.
Yeah. And you're repeating exactly what I've said too. And it's so interesting because through our experience is that if there is ever a negative statement that it's said, you're not worthy or you're not good enough, the Akashic Records have never, ever, ever said anything negative about anything or anyone ever. And so it's a pretty good sign that your ego has jumped in if that's the case. So So we're on the same page on that one. Okay, so what are the typical stages of evolution in learning to become intuitive?
Okay, so intuitive or within the dynamics of the Akashic Records?
I'm just going to say intuitive because I think we can apply that to anything though.
Okay. Well, the first stage is always that I call it different levels of school. So you're in elementary, you're just learning to play, you really don't have a direction. You're thinking about it, but you really don't know what to do about it. And then the next level is you decide you really want to discover what all this is about, but you're not really sure. You've got a lot of self-doubt. And then you go to another level where you begin to then practice and you begin to study and you get a little more serious about it. And then you move into different levels of what I call spiritual maturity in the development of your skills, no matter what that skill is. There's always different levels of development. People often say, well, is what the record's telling me true or not? Is it the truth? Well, it's the truth that you're ready to accept and handle now at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
As you spiritually mature, that truth will mature with you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the key, to be in the flow and be flexible, but continue to move forward in your own spiritual growth. So as people begin to develop, they see the wisdom of doing their own personal work. And the more they do their own personal work and purify the human body so that they can then become more aware of their own divinity, then they move into the solidarity of the oneness of all that there is.
Mm-hmm.
That's the final aspect that we all strive for.
Yeah. And that's the best one. Becoming one. Becoming
Yes.
one. So, are there any tools or exercises that you recommend that people do to become or to develop this intuitiveness?
Well, the awareness is the key, and deciding whether you really want to be disciplined enough to do this or not, because it takes discipline. It's spiritual discipline. And it's not a bad word. I know people hear the word discipline, they go, oh no. But it can begin as a game and fun and joyful, playful. But the key is that you keep with it. You keep your consistency. You keep your growth. You keep your desire to want to connect to the divinity, to the purity of your own essence, and allow that to be your guide. So,
Okay. I think that those are all significant. I do want to jump back to you had mentioned briefly a little bit about the different levels of I don't know if the best word is to say different levels of classes or different levels of evolution in the Akashic Records. So you teach different, like there's levels 1 through 4 of
yes.
different classes for the Akashic Records. Can you run through what they are and kind of give it a little description of each level?
Sure. The first level is when you learn what it feels like to even be in the records and get information strictly for yourself. So you learn the difference between being out of the records, being in the records, and getting information for yourself. The level 2 class is when you learn another prayer, which allows you to open the records of somebody else and to begin to develop the awareness of the sacredness of going into such a beautiful space of another soul's, bringing forth information that could help guide them in their life and help them better their life. So that would be the second level. The third level is when we go into exploring past lives, we go into exploring creativity, and we go into exploring your genetic lineage. So that's when you can really start going into depths and start bringing forward deeply those things that would serve you best to let go of. We do that in many different ways, through art, through writing stories. It's just a myriad of different things that can be accomplished in this class. The fourth level is when we begin to learn how do we go deeper? How do we go even deeper than where we are at now? And do we want to take this on a more professional level? Do we want to become certified? Do we want to hang our shingle out, so to speak, and do consultations professionally for other people? So then we go into the more professional aspect of it. And beyond that, if you want to become certified, there is this specific requirements for you to do that, and an additional certification class. Once you've become a certified consultant, if you want to continue, you can take another class and go through another series of processes to become certified as a teacher.
Perfect. So, how can, now that we've set this up, just perfect for you, how do people contact you if they're interested in taking any classes?
Okay. They can contact me through my email, which is rosemarie@rosemarieswanson.com, or they can call me at 843-991-0831.
Okay. So, Rosemary, I have loved this conversation. Thank you so much for having it with me.
Oh, thank
And thank
you.
you for sharing your knowledge and your wisdom and your growth and everything about you. And I'm honored to be able to have this conversation. So, thank you again. And I can't wait to see you the next time.
Yes, I love it. Thank you so much, Lisa. You're doing a wonderful service to do these podcasts. So
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.